You know, we're all searching for something. In everything we do. It could be money, fame, friendship, solitude, purpose, the meaning of life, whatever. Take this YouTube channel, for example. When I first started it, I didn't have a clue what I was looking for. And to be completely honest with you, I still don't. I know it's not money or fame I'm after. I mean, money's fine as long as you use it correctly. But it seems like every famous person you see anymore has completely lost themselves. And for me, I honestly see no appealing aspect of their lives. As far as solitude goes, I'm pretty good at being alone. I'm the type of guy that can go to a restaurant or a coffee shop by himself, and I don't feel out of place. I can admit that I probably need some work on being a better friend. But I think most men, if they're being honest, will tell you the same. I think what I'm really after is freedom. The freedom to do what I want, when I want, and the freedom to share it with other people. I can't help you with money, and I definitely can't help you out with your own purpose. And the meaning of life, well, I'm still trying to figure that one out on my own. But if all you're after right now is a good ride through the state of Idaho, and by good ride, I mean the type of ride that takes you through the desert, through mountainous green trees, on the freeway, on back roads, and through the country, and through the city, I can help you there. This is my buddy Spencer. I've known him practically my whole life. We've been through a lot together, both good and bad, but we haven't bailed on each other yet. And this is my friend Em, Spencer's wife. And for 100 pounds soaking wet, she can rock a 730-pound bike like a champ. Em's got a big personality and an even bigger heart, but most importantly, she cares about my friend. Now this picture's kind of blurry, but I really like it, because it's not perfect. But the ride we're about to take you on, it's pretty perfect. What's the plan today? How many miles are you riding?
Ride Harley's probably at least 400, if not 500 miles.
It was 450, and it took us 2 days, and we covered the ground in about 7 hours. We started in Bellevue and rode our first 2 hours to Mountain Home. But if you want to spend some time underground, make sure you take a short detour to go check out the Shoshone ice caves. I'm told that because of the ice, Shoshone was one of the first towns to have ice-cold beer year-round. And if you want to learn more, I'll put a link to a video right here that you can check out. So part of the plan for day one was to take Spencer's brand new 2024 Street Glide to the Harley Davidson dealership in Meridian, Idaho, and get a stage 1 completed on it. So essentially the exhaust, air cleaner, and tune. And he was pretty stoked about that. And I got to be honest, watching this bike go down the road was making me really crave a brand new road glide. And if you watch my channel, you all know how that turned out. Now the first part of our trip took us through some hills with some long straightaways, some good sweeping curves, and frequent views of the surrounding mountains. And this was a good way to start out because the riding wasn't too technical and it gave us a good opportunity to settle in for the rest of the trip. There's not a lot of trees in this section, but when the sun started peeking up over the hills, the riding conditions were beyond perfect. There's also a good spot to get off your bikes at a place called Goodell's Cutoff where you can take in an amazing view. So after this stretch, we stopped in at Mountain Home to fuel up. And speaking of views, check out this red Corvette Grand Sport. Again, if you watch my channel, you know I have a soft spot in my heart for this car.
Beautiful car, and it's a Grand Sport. Nice.
Now the chrome wheels on that red Grand Sport look awesome, but I don't really like them on my cyber gray colored rag top, and I've been eyeballing some black colored Apex rims, and I think I might just pull the trigger on them.
That is a beautiful C6, bro.
After fueling up, you can hit Interstate 84 straight into Boise. But like I said, we're dropping Spencer's bike off at the Harley Davidson dealership in Meridian, so we're going to take a short detour, and if you want to check out the dealership, you can do the same. High Desert Harley is a large dealership with a lot of bikes and accessories, so if you forgot something for your trip, it might be worth your time. Also, Meridian is a little more parking friendly than downtown Boise, so if you're with a large group of riders, it might be a better idea to get something to eat in Meridian instead of Boise. We chose to do the opposite, and after dropping Spencer's bike off, they jumped on M's Heritage, and we headed into downtown Boise to get something to eat. We ended up eating lunch at a place called The Fork, which isn't light on the pocketbook, but the food is amazing, and I highly recommend it. As far as parking is concerned, and depending on what time of the day it is, you might want to do what we did, which was park in a parking garage, but I do want to warn you, don't try to park your motorcycle in the corner of the garage because you will get a ticket. We learned this the hard way, but fortunately for us, they were nice to us, and they simply gave us a warning. But I do think it's kind of silly that you can't park in the corners of the garage because otherwise you're forced to park in an actual stall, which seems like a waste of space to me. Plus, this is legal in other places I've been, so it's kind of confusing. After eating and figuring out our parking mishap, we decided to hold ourselves accountable, so we visited the old Idaho State Penitentiary. This was honestly one of the unexpected high points of the trip for me. This was Spencer and M's idea, and I found it very interesting, and we had time to spare, so it worked out perfectly. The prison was operational for 101 years between 1872 and 1973, and 13,000 inmates walked through its gates. At its capacity, it could hold 600 inmates at a time, and within those 101 years, 129 inmates died behind the walls. 10 of those inmates were executed for their crimes by way of hanging and are now called the Hanged 10. In 1957, the last man to be executed in the old state pen was number 10, a man by the name of Ray Snowden, who had brutally murdered a woman by the name of Cora Dean. The two had met and were drinking with each other in a Garden City, Idaho bar when they decided to go to downtown Boise. However, an argument ensued in the parking lot over a cab fare, and Snowden smacked Cora, and she replied by kicking him in the groin, and he brutally killed her with a knife. The stabbing was so brutal that Snowden actually cut Cora's spinal cord, which ultimately led the police to him due to the fact that he had threatened to cut another female's spinal cord in the past. Just 13 months later, Snowden was executed, but it didn't have its intended effect. Snowden strangled to death instead of dying instantly. This led to rumors that the execution was purposely botched due to the brutality of his crime. Prior to his execution, it was said that he admitted to murdering 2 other women and that he said no one could forgive him, not even God. There are also reports of hauntings in the number 5 cell house where Snowden was executed. It's been reported that someone can be heard struggling to get their breath when there's no one else there. Now, this is just one story that came out of this territorial prison. You gotta understand that this prison was open for 101 years. To put that in perspective, when it first opened, the initial cells didn't even have indoor plumbing. The prisoners had to use what they call honey buckets to use the restroom, and every morning they'd have to carry out buckets of their own fecal matter to be disposed of. The conditions of the prison ultimately led to 3 serious riots that occurred in 1952, 1971, and 1973. Also in 1973, the prison closed down and the last 416 inmates were moved to the new Idaho State Correctional Institution. That same year, the prison was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. The old Idaho State Penitentiary is one of only 4 territorial prisons open to the public today. The other 3 are the Old Montana Territorial Prison, located in Deer Lodge, Montana, the Yuma Territorial Prison, located in Yuma, Arizona, and the Wyoming Territorial Prison, located in Laramie, Wyoming. So if you're riding through the Boise area, you definitely want to take some time to check out this old historical site. It's a nice place to visit, but I wouldn't want to stay. So after getting out of prison, we headed back to Meridian, picked up Spencer's bike, fueled up, and then headed to Sourdough Loge. Now this is hands down the best stretch of actual riding we did. I mean, it's got everything. Straightaways, huge sweeping curves, technical curves, and it goes on for 87 miles. And the majority of the time, you're surrounded by huge green pine trees.
These days are running slow. Sunsets and shores far from home. Headlights are shining on the sea. No place on earth I'd rather be. And I could try to just follow the swell, but I'll never find this anywhere else.
Now, to be quite honest, I planned on doing the Tail of the Dragon instead of this ride, but life happened and I ended up playing in my own backyard instead, and I'm kinda glad I did, because I just don't know if the Tail of the Dragon's gonna compare. I mean, yeah, it's got 11 miles with 318 curves, but I think I'd actually prefer this type of riding instead, and it goes on for 87 miles. So I guess I'm knocking it before I try it, but I still have full intentions on riding the Tail, so when that day comes, I'll let you know if it's worth the trip from Idaho.
And I could try to just follow the swell, but I'll never find this anywhere else.
It's funny what you find in your own backyard when you stop and look around.
Try to just follow the swell, but I'll never find this anywhere else.
So after a 2-hour ride that felt like 10 minutes and stopping to satisfy Spencer and M's sweet tooth and my love for coffee, we rolled into Sourdough Loge. Now, Sourdough Loge is where we ended up spending the night, and it was kind of convenient because there's a restaurant there that you can get dinner and breakfast at, and a little convenience store area where you can get snacks and beer if you'd like, and you can also get gas here as well. We stayed in these 2 cabins, but honestly, they both sleep a lot. Mine had a twin bed, 2 bunk beds in their own separate room, and a futon in a living room area, so you could sleep quite a few people in just one cabin if you'd like. They also have full kitchens, a little TV, and a counter area to play board games at, and there's a fire pit outside.
What gear were you in most of the time in those twisties?
On the pass we just came down,
Mm-hmm.
I was between third and fourth.
Third
Yeah.
and fourth for me too.
Me too. There was a couple times I hit second on really sharp ones, but
The really sharp ones.
yeah.
The ones where that had the speed limit 25.
Yep.
That was just so the...
That's kind of how I was dredging it, man. If it was 45 or something, or 40, I'd leave it in fourth. If it was in 35 or 30, I put it in third.
Yeah, there you go.
So, and it kind of worked out.
It was really nice to cheat having that map on there, so
Oh, yeah.
I could see what the road was
I
coming
thought
up
about
with.
that. I was like, it would be nice to have GPS on a screen just so you know it's coming before you come to it.
It's cool.
Had a good time.
It was a fun day.
It was a good ride. It was hot as can be in Boise, but
I'm honestly surprised I didn't see. I saw quite a few sports cars, but I didn't see like as many as I thought I would.
yeah.
Or bikes. That guy on that bullet bike was ripping.
No, there's normally a lot more bikes on the road than what we've seen today on this road.
So after dinner and talking by the fire the rest of the night, we hit the rack, got back up, had our coffee, and hit the road. This time we headed to Stanley, Idaho, which is another good place to rest your head. It's only 47 miles away from Sourdough Loge, and it's kind of a little hidden gem. Matter of fact, the next time I do this trip, I'll probably stay in Stanley, Idaho, and the reason for that is there's just more going on. There's more people in the area, more restaurants, more of a nightlife, there's hot pools, there's just overall more things to do, and you could probably add a couple days to your trip just by hanging out in Stanley. I actually recommend you go check out their website just to get a feel for what Stanley offers. The next time I roll through here, I'm going to bring a good pair of hiking shoes and some swim trunks. Now, while we were in the Stanley area, we did 3 things. One of those things was we took a short ride to the Sunbeam Dam historical site. This is a nice, relaxing ride along the Salmon River, and it's just one of those places where when you're riding next to the water, it just feels right. The quick story on the dam is that they began building it in 1909 and it was completed in 1910 for the purpose of providing power to a mining operation. But unfortunately, it was only in operation for a year because the low cost of power the dam provided couldn't compensate for the low cost of the ore they were mining. And in 1934, a portion of the dam was purposely blown up to allow salmon to continue swimming up the Salmon River. One interesting thing I learned is that in 1931, there was a previous attempt to blow up the dam by upset fishermen. Another thing we did while in the Stanley area was take a short trip to check out McGowan's Peak. McGowan's Peak sits above the Stanley Lake and is the most photographed mountain of the Sawtooths. And on a calm day, you can see a perfect reflection of it in the lake below. As with anything, pictures and video don't do this mountain justice, but I can tell you for sure that when you're standing in front of this thing, it truly makes you feel small. The third thing we did was eat at the Mountain Village restaurant, and while we were there, I asked Spencer and him a question. I asked him why they started riding. Unfortunately, the audio in this video didn't really turn out, but I can tell you this. I think a better question is, why do we continue to ride Harleys? I mean, contrary to popular belief, I would venture to guess that most people that ride a Harley Davidson work really hard to be a productive member of society. And for the 2 days that I was on this trip, I was able to let go of those responsibilities and just live in the moment. And I think that's what it's all about. So prior to leaving Stanley, we fueled up the bikes and then we headed towards Sun Valley. You can expect a beautiful ride all the way through with a great scenic overview. We did get rained on during this stretch, but it was the fun type of rain where we dried off quickly. So as far as the Sun Valley area goes, my favorite places to be are Ketchum and Hailey, and for different reasons. And for the sake of this video, let's just call Ketchum a glass of wine and Hailey a good beer, if you catch my drift. This is another area where you could easily add 2 days onto your trip and not run out of things to do. But if you decide to do that, make sure you stop by Hailey and go to the Wicked Spud. It's a great place to eat, grab a drink, and they have an outdoor area where they often have a band, and they have a life-size chess set. I'm a fan of chess, so this place suits me just fine. So that's the end of our loop, but we do have one more place to talk about, and that's Twin Falls, Idaho. And the reason I say this is because if I was from out of the area, I'd want to go through Twin so that I could check out the Perrine Bridge. Now the ride to Twin is more of a desert style climate, so don't be expecting a lot of trees, but trust me, you'll get plenty of those on this ride already, so it'll be kind of a nice change. Now, if you wanted to meet your group in Twin and ride from there directly to Mountain Home instead, it might make more logistical sense depending on where you're coming from, and then you can just disregard the Bellevue to Mountain Home stretch. The truth is, you could do this anywhere you wanted along the loop and the ride would still make perfect sense. And while you're in Twin, if you want to base jump the bridge, you can do that. Just go to basejumpthebridge.com to schedule an appointment. You crazy f***. Twin also has a nice and revitalized Old Town area to hang out at, and they have an upscale restaurant right off the cliffs called Elevation 486. You gotta check it out. And last but not least, make sure you check out Snake River Harley Davidson. There's a reason that I travel from outside of town to come to Twin, and that I've purchased 2 of my most recent bikes from this outfit, and it's because they got a good group of guys that make you feel at home. And that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed the ride. This is Nick with Idaho Up, and keep up.